Greetings and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael C. Washington. I'm the founder and executive director of Empower People Incorporated. My motto is change your world, and your world will change around you. I'm also the founder of a jail and prison advocacy group called Oklahoma Coalition Against People Abuse. So again, our motto is change your world, and your world will change around you. Tonight, we're going to be presenting an outstanding person that I've known for many years. We call today's program A Day with Dr. Paul Lehman. Dr. Lehman, let me say, for many years has been with me for countless ages and eons. And I just can't say enough about the great things he's done to make me who I am today. So I just want to be truthful about that. I've attended banquets with him. I've attended congratulations ceremonies where he's received honors for becoming a broadcaster in the state of Oklahoma. So, you know, I've had the privilege of being around, so it was an honor for me to help put this on for him. Today's event, again, we're going to be talking about a number of things on tap. Those of you who will be listening, you'll be listening to Dr. Lehman, who will be presenting the PowerPoint presentation. He'll be talking about his new book, and he's going to also be talking about the things as far as what white supremacy is and how we have been based back to culture. And a number of others, I don't want to give you all the whole thing because they need to give me everything out of the room if I told you. Anyhow. We also going to have a few other speakers on tap. Once he finishes, Brother Aquarian is seriously thinking about running for a political office in Lawton, Oklahoma. He's going to be running for city council. And again, I don't want these people running out of the room. I ain't going to say too much before they try to get me. But you, Brother Yarborough, will be speaking as well. And also we have Sister Cheryl Davis, who will be speaking about financial literacy in our community, which everybody knows that nature where you are concerned as a community. Without holding you any longer, let me briefly state that I call my beautiful brother. We are a local nonprofit agency here at Oklahoma Coalition Against People Abuse, where our motto is changing what your world change around you. For the past 12 years, we've done tremendous work here in our communities, not just here in Oklahoma, but Tulsa, Shawnee, Chickasha, wherever the case may be. If you call on us, here we come. Our goal is to improve the lives of our youth and improve it and provide a safe and healthy environment for our elderly. Empower People is also the mother and founder of, again, Oklahoma Coalition Against People Abuse again. As many of you might know already, our organization is responsible for causing a new state-of-the-art jail to be being built here in Oklahoma County. The cost to build this modern-day and more humane jail is $300 million. You can rest assured that inmates will be given better food, more out-of-cell time, better phone privileges to call their loved ones, access to psychological and mental services, healthcare services, and they will spend less time in jail before finally going to court. This is important. Let's give us something. We're doing something. We also are responsible, and again, Dr. Lehman was definitely instrumental in this, preserving the historic landmark for Freedom Center, created at Brain Trust of Mother Claire Luke, may she rest in peace. It's right here on the northeast side of Oklahoma City. The Freedom Center, believe it or not, y'all, is responsible for the longest sit-in movement throughout the whole United States, right in the state of Oklahoma. And guess what? We preserve that to make sure our legacy remains. Amen. Amen. They were trying to keep us out of the annals of the history book, but it didn't work. Amen. Get ready to close out. Thank you so much. This August, by the way, will be our 4th year that we'll be celebrating preserving the historic landmark. And we want to invite each of you to come in, maybe leave your phone numbers and emails or whatever you think, because we definitely want you to be a part of this history that we're being now for the 4th year. Without any further ado, and without lingering much longer, I see Dr. Lehman with your eyes on the I won't linger much longer. Now I would bring up a great man again, a great friend of mine, great historian, brother named Dr. Paul Lehman. Dr. Lehman really needs no introduction. He's well known and his writings are established in the annals of Oklahoma history. Dr. Lehman again will be talking about his, actually be giving a PowerPoint presentation talking about his profound book that he has. I'm sure, I can look it up, I'm messing up. Oh my God, I better do this. We probably look this up. And,
okay.
Down. Let's switch it around.
well, let me do this one while I let him talk. Oh my God, I would have to get Steiner something. Let's see, okay. Because again, we don't want to call Dr. Lehman, I appreciate y'all. Let's call Dr. Paul Lehman. Let's give him a hand. You don't have to do me a hand. No.
Yes, we do.
Do your stuff here. This isn't a speech, this is a talk, okay? So, we're relaxed here. If you have some questions, you can write them down on the back of whatever, or hold on to them until I'm done, but I'm more than happy to address any concern you might have with respect to the presentation. Now, this presentation is a little different from what you have been privy to in the past, because I'm not here to create any data. Look at the end of it. This information is informative. It's not here to castigate anyone, to denigrate anyone, to humiliate anyone. It's simply to inform you, hopefully to educate you. I'm an educator, so basically what we do is present information and let you take that information and use it in whatever way you can or want to. And so basically with that in mind, I'll get started. Little Johnny runs into the kitchen and his mom preparing lunch. And he asks her, "Where did I come from?" The question caught her by surprise. And when she thought about it, she said, "I'm kind of busy now, but I'll have your dad talk to you about it later." Well, when Johnny's father came home, the mother told him about Johnny's question and asked him to handle it. That evening, the father came home.
I told Dr. This.
Thank you.
Johnny's father called him and said, "Your mom told me about the question that you had, so let's sit down and talk about it." And he said, "Now you asked, where did I come from?" And he said, yes, where did I come from?" He said, so the dad began, "Well, once upon a time, there," Johnny said, no, I don't want to hear a story. He said, "Well, okay." So he started again, and he said, "Well, you know, when the insects Well, okay. Johnny's mother and father could have saved themselves some time and they questioned Johnny initially to find out exactly what he really wanted to know. But because they didn't do that, the language created a problem for them. And of course, initially from Johnny as well. Now, we're born in a society, not of our making, and from day one, we're socially conditioned to learn how to live in it. And the most important influence on our conditioning is language. We have heard the adage about sticks and stones might break my bones, good words will never hurt me. Well, that's not necessarily true, because if we're talking about physical pain is one thing. But if we're talking about emotional pain, that's something totally different. Words can indeed hurt us if they coincide with our emotional state. Some familiar phrases like, "he died," or "you failed," or you're fired. I want a divorce, or I'm pregnant. And other phrases can hit that sensitive spot for us and indeed hurt us. Other familiar quotes that involves language and words like the pen is mightier than the sword, or loose lips sink ships. I'm trying to say that a few times quickly. As a matter of fact, words can elicit a whole range of emotions depending on who, what, when, and where the language is used. Because language directly influences our thoughts, actions, and behavior, we need to be mindful of its use. Language has been a domineering instrument in America, controlling citizens' lives for better or worse. And one particular kind of language has had more influence than any other: the language of race. Before we can discuss any aspect of the language of race, we need to know exactly what we are talking about. Another adage states, quote, "Never argue with a fool, because observers cannot tell the difference." Unquote. That being the case, we'll start by examining the origin of the word race. What you see before us is a picture of the planet. Only one species lives on this planet, Homo sapiens. How do we know this? We know this through the various sciences, research, history, art, artifacts, anthropology, both physical and mental, or physical and cultural anthropology. Let's see if we can go down. Okay, we'll start down at this. We'll actuate, but we'll try. No, it's not going to do it. Basically, what is following would be the journey of man, and what that journey includes was, this was a, well, not this, but what you would have seen was a video, and of course we're not having that. Video that showing the peopling of the planet. About 160,000 years ago, the species emerged in East Africa and slowly began to cover the entire planet. Much of the research information discovered is due to mitochondrial DNA. Now that's a genetic material, and it's very, very popular today. As a matter of fact, it was in the news just yesterday about a man being discovered who was a serial killer, and they got his mitochondrial DNA from hair and saliva from Pennsylvania. That's not good there. Anyhow, this DNA, mitochondrial, is usually small mt DNA. It's passed down from mothers to both sons and daughters, but sons cannot pass along their mother's mitochondria to their children. The reason for this is because the mitochondrial DNA is transmitted through the female egg. In other words, you inherited your mitochondrial DNA exclusively from your mother. Now, the species, Homo sapiens, covering the planet was not steady nor continuous because of a variety of reasons. Most of the action had to do with nature, the climate, earthquakes, etc., in one form or another. Nonetheless, the population of the planet reached our present day understanding about 10,000 years ago. Once the planet became populated, the various groups of the species began to develop their lifestyles and cultures based largely on their geographical location and those of their neighbors. Soon, boundaries were established, and so conflicts among the group began. Now, the picture that you're seeing now is a man known as, well, his name is there, Carl Linnaeus. Let's see if we can get it coming down here. Okay. Well, come on, Carl. Linnaeus invented the system of classification of living organisms, including man. He was Swedish and considered a brilliant scientist. He was also a man conditioned by society relative to myths and biases. Now, he's known as the father of taxonomy. I'll show you what we're talking about. Basically, it says there are 8 distinct taxonomic categories. They are domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Look at it. This is basically what it looks like. And so it goes reduction from life all the way down to species. What's important here? The genus and species. We get our name, our species. Homo is the genus, meaning man. Species basically identifies what kind of man. And so sapien actually means wise man. This basically is still in use today. Now, one of the things that Linnaeus did was, when he developed this system, Linnaeus took the time to comment on various groups within the species. His characterizations of each group was based on his social conditioning and biases, not on science. He knew that regardless of the differences among the groups within the species, no subspecies existed or could exist. For example, if we bred a jackass to a horse, the offspring would be neither a jackass nor a horse. It would be what we know as a mule. Because only members of the same species can replicate themselves. In other words, only Homo sapiens can reproduce Homo sapiens. Mules cannot replicate mules because they represent subspecies. Well, these are the 4 groups that Linnaeus identified. Homo americanus, Homo europaeus, Homo asiaticus, and then Homo, actually it was africanus, but I just put Afro here because they use that from time to time. Okay. One of the things that Linnaeus did in addition to listing the groups was to identify them. Now, he identified Homo europaeus, the species and taxon to which he belonged, as, quote, white, gentle, and inventive, unquote. The descriptions of the other variations, which he called taxa, T-A-X-A, T-E-X-A, sorry, went something like this. Homo Americanus, the characterization is, and basically Homo Americanus was a reference to Native Americans, not to Europeans, okay? Homo Americanus, tenacious, contented, free, and ruled by custom. Homo Asiaticus, they're stern, haughty, stingy, ruled by opinion. Now, Homo Africanus, cunning, slow, negligent, ruled by caprice. Now, the characteristics, although so consistent with mankind being in one family or species, change when scholars, scientists, clergy, and others began to view group characterizations as elements of either superiority or inferiority based on group qualities and of biological differences among the group. The reference to biological differences is where the myth comes into existence, using the word race. Now, if you think back on the descriptions of those four groups, when we mentioned Homo Europaeus, color white was the first term that came out. Now that's important because no color was associated with the other three groups. In the year 1136, a book written by Geoffrey of Monmouth entitled History of the Kings of Britain published myths about the various groups in Britain, comparing one to another. The book identified the Anglo-Saxons as the highest group based on its history and character. Although the claim to being superior to the other groups was false, the Anglo-Saxons promoted it as real. As the myth continued through the years, the concept of superiority expanded to include the upper classes of European males, not just the Anglo-Saxons of England. So what we are dealing with in language is the myth, not race. Race is used to protect and promote the concept of European superiority. Now, let me give you just a little history here. I'm trying. In 1494, this is a map that involved Tordesillas. And what happened here was Portugal and Spain got together and decided to separate the world as they know it, with Spain getting, I think, the east side, Portugal getting the west side. Let me check to make sure that's right. In addition to doing this, they met with the, here it is right here. It was created in 1994. Come on, show up. Okay. Portugal and Spain met with the Pope, Julius II, this is in 1494, who gave his approval to drawing a line, this is an imaginary line, dividing, and it says the purpose to resolve the conflict that arose from the 1481 papal bill, etc., was which affirmed Portugal's claim to all non-Christians' lands south of the Canary Islands after Columbus claimed the Antilles for Castile, and to divide trading and colonizing rights to all lands located west of the Canary Islands between Portugal and Castile, later applied between the Spanish and Portugal to the exclusion of the Christian Empire. So what happened here? I don't know if you were that 2 years earlier when Christopher Columbus supposedly discovered the New World. What was the first thing he did when he landed, when he disembarked? He claimed the land and the people for the king and queen, which meant no longer in existence was the local authority, because with his language, Columbus simply took over with the backing of the crown.
Say that.
The concept of European supremacy constantly expanded in the Western world because of the power of control it exerted over the less powerful people, or people considered inferior to them. And language was the vehicle that powered the control. Now, let me show you. Well, I think come on. Yay. Stop at the top. Okay, what this is, from the 1400s to the 1600s, this is history now, okay? Spain, Portugal, France, the Dutch, and the British colonized these countries. You see the lines? They're color-coded at the top where it says colonial expansion. Now, what happened after the Treaty of Tordesillas? The other European countries said, hey, you can't keep us from doing this. You're not just taking control, Spain and Portugal. We want a piece of the pie too. And this is what happened. Between 1400 and 1600, they colonized these countries. Now look at the countries. None of the countries were Christian. Now Christian simply meant civilized. It had nothing to do with religion. Okay? So a Christian country simply means that the people were civilized people. History, especially American history, back in middle 1500s, the Native Americans, the Indians, especially in Oklahoma and Arizona, referred to the invaders like many of them you recognize as Christian enslavers. Christian enslavers. That's American history. That's not coming from me. But anyhow, but what you get in this picture is the concept of European dominance and superiority. No European country was colonized. Now, colonization is another way of saying enslaving, okay? As a matter of fact, there are countries in Africa right now still trying to gain their independence.
That's right.
From being colonized by European countries. So this is not my gospel. I'm just educating you, okay? Now, we're still talking about the language of race. I wanted to give you a background so you'd understand where we're coming from. Okay. Now, race has held America captive since its inception without segments of America realizing that they were being held captive. Society conditioned Americans to use and accept the language of race as something valid, ordinary, and normal, because the government and all the social institutions were complicit in protecting it.
Come on, come on.
The founding fathers understood the power of language and knew that they wanted to protect and sustain the myth of European supremacy and domination. So they invented a concept that would do both things at once. The concept was the existence of a subspecies of Homo sapiens. So if they, the Europeans, represented the species, all others would naturally be inferior to them as subspecies.
Watch it, watch it.
They knew that the word and the language would contain the concept of biological and genetic differences in the subspecies inferior to the species. Thereby, all believers in the myth would recognize the Europeans as being superior to all other human beings. So the plan was to select a word that met the criteria and then construct a language around the word to hide its purpose. The word they selected was race, because it has neither a fixed concept other than subspecies, nor can it be defined, but still conveys the impression of authority in accomplishing its mission. This is to let you know that what I'm talking about is not a secret, but has been known for years. This gentleman, Ashley Montague, some of you might be familiar with Montague, because, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, because he was wonderful for the UNESCO 1950 statement. But before that, Montague explained the concept of race. I mean, these are his words, not mine, and I'm quoting. The idea of race was, in fact, the deliberate creation of an exploiting class seeking to maintain and defend its privileges against what was profitably regarded as an inferior social caste. Ever since the commencement of the slave trade, there had been those who attempted to justify their conduct in slavery, by denying the slaves the status. So if you looked at the enslaved as less than people, then you were justified in treating them any way you wanted to. That's Montague, and we'll talk about it a little later. Today, we use the word race without giving much thought to it because we are conditioned to do so. American society was built on the concept of European supremacy and never concealed this fact because the language used was never challenged. We need to understand the power of the word race and its derivatives in order to underscore the power of the language of race. The language of race is any language that promotes and protects the myth of European supremacy. Do you need me to say that again?
Yes.
Come on, come on.
Okay.
Yes.
The language of race is any language that promotes and protects the myth of European supremacy.
Whoa.
Now, here's something you need to kind of hold on to, because
Come on.
it's a part of our everyday experience.
Come on with it.
The word race does four primary things whenever it word or its derivatives are used. It unifies, it separates, it discriminates, and it manipulates or controls.
Wow.
Every time the word race or its derivatives are used, that happens.
Wow.
Let me depart just a minute ago, just for a minute, explain what I'm talking about. In our language, you hear people say, well, I'm biracial. Well, what in the world is a biracial person? Two species?
Yeah.
What? They're-
Oh.
Now, the correct term, if you want to use that, because it doesn't exist, you're bispecies.
Oh, wow.
And see, that makes sense. No, because there's only one species, Homo sapiens.
That's right.
So when you say you're biracial, you're using the term race, which means subspecies, that you are a creation, I guess, to. Got it? Okay. Or when you say, well, I'm multiracial. Whoa, what the heck is that? Again, the word race simply means subspecies or inferior. Okay, you continue here.
Come on.
We need to remember that the word race was invented to mean subspecies, which does not exist in the Homo sapien species. In other words, a human race does not exist. There is no human race. There is a human species, Homo sapiens.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. But of course, that's not what we've been led to believe. Okay, now, again,
Yes, right.
Ashley Montague he popularized topics like, he wrote the book Feminine Mystique. I don't know if any of you ever heard of that, but it was a very popular book. As race and gender, he also wrote on those, and the relationship to politics and development. Getting ready to show you the UNESCO statement that he was responsible for writing. But a lot of the information that I've gotten and reference information that I've gotten comes from one of his books, which was published in 1942. The title of this book is Most Dangerous Myth, The Fallacy of Race. Check it out. I'm just reporting, okay?
Yeah.
The truth of the myth of European city is found in this book.
Wow.
Okay, let's move along to the next. This is the official statement of UNESCO. And UNESCO is the United Nations Educational,
Yes, sir.
Scientific, and Cultural Organization.
Wow.
So it's part of the UN.
Right.
Okay? Nothing, and of course, so what I want to share with you is in the, get back there. Okay.
Wow. That's deep.
Look at this statement. We can read it. I think everybody can read it. As early as 1947, UNESCO initiated a program which, through the dissemination of scientific facts, established the fallacious nature of racist theories. The results of the work of eminent experts convened by UNESCO were summarized in 4 statements on the question of race. These statements, and this is important, elucidated the genesis of theories of racial superiority. They emphasize the biological differentiation of races does not exist, and that the obvious differences between populations living in different geographical areas of the world should be attributed to the interaction of historical, economic, political, social, and cultural factors rather than biological ones. How clear do you want it?
Wow, look at this.
There's no such thing as race. But our government and our society persists. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I just wanted you to know it's well documented what I'm talking about. This isn't anything new. Okay. Now, wanted to show you the difference, just to be on clear in your head when we talk about it. When we talk about it. The species Homo sapien is the pie. Okay? All the ethnic groups that exist in the world are pieces of that pie. It doesn't matter what you look like, which the language you speak, you know, the religion, you're still part of the species, the pie.
Wow.
So when we talk about ethnicity, we're talking about the culture embraced by ethnic groups. It has nothing to do with race.
Right.
Just wanted to make that clear. Now,
Perfect.
yeah, well, here's something else that needs to be clear. I don't know if you, yeah, you can see that. I mentioned DNA, mitochondrial DNA before. This is a statement from a renowned scholar, Harvard University. Listen to what he says about DNA and the concept of race.
Listen.
What the genetics shows is the mixture and displacement have happened again and again, and that our picture of past racial structures are almost always wrong, says David Reich of Harvard University, geneticist, whose new book on the subject is called Who We Are and How We Got Here. The next few sentences is important. There are no fixed traits associated with specific geographic locations. Race says because as often as isolation has created differences among populations, migration and mixing have blurred or erased them. What is that saying? There's no such thing as race. You look at these commercials for ancestral things where they say you are 90% Egyptian and 10% Scottish. Where are they getting that information from? There are no pure anything. Well, it'll get a little more clear later on. Okay. Where am I? Oh, yeah, okay. So, what DNA shows, if there was ever any doubt about all humankind belonging to the same species, the Genome Project, which he's talking about, that gave us DNA, resolved that problem. According to our DNA profile, all human beings are 99.9% alike. You cannot look at a person's DNA and discern anything other than this person is a human being. Now, you can get other things, other aspects of it, and group them, and then associate the groups with whatever that happens to be. Okay. Now, the government, however, has taken the opportunity to confuse race and ethnicity by encouraging race to reflect biological characteristics, while ethnicity reflects cultural elements, not biological.
That's right.
The fact is that race is invented and has no bearing on group culture and identity. Let's look at some of the confusion caused by the Census Bureau. You guys should probably be familiar with this.
Uh-oh.
Okay, come back a little bit. Okay, we'll start with. Let's see if I can turn this down so I get more. Okay. This is actual form. This is an actual form from the Census Bureau. Now, come on, go back. I'm trying to show it to you in segments. Come on. Right. Okay. This is what the census people deal with. This is okay. What is one's race? Mark X, one or more boxes, and print origin. Now, the first box for white, it says, print, for example, listen now, German, Irish, English, Italian, no, there's a trick in here, Lebanese, Egyptian, etc. You can mark white for any of those. Now, notice, white is not defined. What is a white person? It's not defined. Look at the next one, black. Black or American or African American. Print, for example, African American. Now, Jamaican, Haitian, Nigerian, Ethiopian, Somalian, etc. Now, wait a minute. Hold on. You have in front of you 4 African countries listed. One of those countries is listed as white.
Wow.
Egypt. Why? Because the Europeans divided Africa. They made the countries in the northern part of Africa white. Didn't matter what they looked like. But all the countries below the Sudan are considered black. Now, those countries don't call themselves that.
Right.
The Europeans call themselves
Yeah.
black because the Europeans call themselves white. We didn't do that.
Wow.
They did that. But this is the confusion that our government does. Now, look, American Indian or Alaska, and then it goes print name of enrolled principals. You got tribes, for example, Navajo Nation, Blackfeet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then below that, what do you have? You can put down almost anything. Well, let me get back to it. Come on. Okay. You can print pretty much anything. Okay. So, since the government, as we can see from, well, actually, we can see from the United Nations statement that the U.S. Census totally confused and constantly ignores the reality of race as an invalid term regarding human beings. The form details the differences between race and ethnicity, how the terms overlap, and how various groups are characterized according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Race refers to dividing people into groups, often based on physical characteristics. Ethnicity to refer to cultural expressions and identification of people of different geographical regions, including their customs, history, language, It's all confusing. This is what
Wow.
This is what Montague says, and I quote, "To summarize then, mankind may be regarded as comprising of a number of populations of people, or people, the members of which often differ physically and superficially from one another. Both physical and cultural differences are neither fixed nor permanent, but are subject to change." So, this business it's a bunch of malarkey.
Mm.
Okay. Now, I had another, group that I wanted to share with you, but it's not gonna work, so I'll just have to go to the other. Okay, one of the things that we, well, hold that thought just a minute. Let's get back to the four conditions I mentioned with respect to race. We find the four conditions in race whenever the word is used, even in combination with other words such as biracial, mixed race, multiracial, or where the word is implied with the skin color. And this is where it gets tricky. African Americans or people of African descent have fallen in love with the word black. The word black keeps you enslaved.
Mm.
Why do you think that when Black Lives Matter came out with a pure and genuine purpose to address a genuine, clear problem in society, guess what happened the next day? Blue lives matter. White lives matter.
Yeah.
All lives. So basically what it did was deafened the impact
Wow.
of the concept of black life. Because black in America has always been a warning sign
Mm.
for European Americans and African Americans as well. Because society has been conditioned to accept Anglo-Saxon and European Americans as the dominant group, they then set the standards for everything taught in society. That is, they represent what is considered normal, thereby determine what is acceptable or not. In other words, they control. The language of race exists in many forms, and each of these forms promote and protect the myth. Many studies have been conducted to show how people react to the word black. Many of the reactions are negative because of the social conditioning experienced by society. When we hear or read the word minority, welfare, center city, high crime area, a population of color, usually African Americans come to mind.
Yeah.
We know that for something to exist, it must have a name. If it has no name, it cannot exist. So giving it a name brings it into existence. That tactic was used in the Constitution. For example, let me get it. Well, I guess I don't have it. All right. Let me explain it to you. In the preamble of the Constitution, it says, "We the people of the United States." You go to the first section, first article. The second section, the third paragraph, it mentions people, Indians who are not taxed. It mentions people who can only be taxed at 3/5. Aren't those people part of we the people? No. They are not. It took the 14th Amendment.
Wow.
It took the 14th Amendment to correct that error. And the 14th Amendment reads, all citizens. Now here's the thing, and this is extremely important because we get confused from time to time because we're so conditioned. Somebody sees you and they say, hey, what are you? We're conditioned to do what? Give them our ethnic history. Why? They didn't ask you that. The 14th Amendment tells you that if you were born or naturalized in America, you are a citizen of America and the state in which you reside, and you are protected by all laws.
Wow.
So when somebody asks you, who are you? You are an American. You don't need to tell them anything else unless they're writing a biography or writing a book about you. The only reason they want to know is because separate, unite, discriminate, control.
Wow.
Jesus.
Okay, I'm just about done here, so.
Wow.
You need to know this information. That's why I'm
Come on
here.
with us.
Okay. Here's the, getting back to the government and the Constitution. The myth of European supremacy was promoted and protected actually in the 15th Amendment when it made reference to race and color. See, there was no need. There was absolutely no need for those two inclusions to be included. If all the citizens fit the criteria, why identify certain aspects of it? Okay, the same tactic is used throughout civil rights, other civic legislation, where race and color are used as proof of their continued existence. We find that the government uses many related words that leave open the full meaning of the language. And let me just back up a little bit when I said, think about we'll say the 64 Civil Rights Act. What does it say that you can't do? You can't discriminate against what? Because what they do is they give you permission to discriminate. Why? Because they say you can do it unless you get caught. In other words, 68, fair housing. It says no one can be prevented from renting or buying a house based on race, color, gender, sexual origin. Why do you list those things? If you're not going to discriminate against anybody, don't discriminate.
Wow.
But they put these things in there because they legitimize them. You have to understand the language and what it's doing. Right now, if someone wanted to challenge the law of 1775 about teaching race in Oklahoma, all you do is have to say, okay, you define race. Define race. Tell us what we need to know. You can't define race because it doesn't exist except as a social, as a subculture or subspecies identification. You can't define race with respect to people. because it's not fixed. Anyhow, the other terms that used usually in conjunction with race, and you hear this all the time, and we don't even think about it. One was equality. Whoa, what? Wait a minute. Equality, let me do an experiment here. Anybody, do you have any siblings? Did you grow up with any siblings? Different sex? Okay. Did your parents treat you all equally? No, good. Your parents treated you equally? Okay, you had a brother?
Yes, sir.
Okay, how many suits do you have?
How many suits?
Suits, yeah, suits and shirts do you have?
I don't know how many he have.
No, how many do you have?
Me? I've got,
How many dresses does he have?
oh.
But see, we're talking about equal, and that's the whole point. The term equal only exists with numbers. It only exists with numbers. Two people cannot be equal. It's impossible. So when you hear things like equal opportunity, what's opportunity? You can go to Remington Park and have an opportunity to win some money, but you also have an opportunity to lose. There's nothing guaranteed. So when you hear the term equal opportunity, what the heck does that mean? It means what the people in power wants it to be, as long as it's not challenged. Okay, I'm sorry, I mean.
Preaching.
You okay?
Come on.
No, I'm gonna wrap this up in a little bit. Well, the same thing works for equal justice. There's no such thing as equal justice. All you have to do is examine the terms. When you hear that equal justice, it's conjecture, and you pay attention to it. Yet those terms are used on a fairly, and you just listen and don't go on ahead. What can be done to correct the problem with the language of race? The simple answer is to stop using the language of race. That, however, is easier said than done, but consider this. Become educated relative to the language and how it influences and affects your behavior. That's the first thing. Many states and legislators are presently in the process of trying to prevent the truth from coming into reality. They invent stupid laws that cannot be enforced because they make no sense. For example, they passed a law in Oklahoma to prevent the teaching of anything concerning race. How can you talk about white people or black people without talking about race? That's what you're talking about. Give me a break. Continuing here, they also passed the law forbidding the teaching of sex and gender. The loss of control is not only on race, but on women as well. The second thing to do in not using the language of race, yourself as anything other than a human being. Not a color, not a member of some tribe, but a member of the entire human family. What that does is it frees us from the restrictions placed on us by group membership. No longer should one identify as a color, because when they do, they simply continue to support and promote the European concept of supremacy.
Come on.
The words bias and bigotry carry no biological value. The third thing one can do is try, when possible and safe, to educate people around them to European supremacy and the fear of those that want to prevent the truth from being realized. What the fear of losing control of European supremacy, while the fear of losing control of European supremacy is real and actions to retain it are desperate, the fact is that it is already too late to try and go back to the days of segregation, etc. For proof, all one has to do these days is look at TV or social media and witness the representation of the many ethnic group members seen in commercials and shows. The sheer number of those representations show the rapid changes in the demographics of America, and the frequency of their airing tends to render them as part of our new normalcy. Here's the reality. If someone acts with ethnic bigotry and they are referred to as racist, that in fact would be a compliment to them. I'm thinking primarily of just recently Tuberville. Senator Tuberville was asked if he viewed white nationalists as racist. And he said he views them as Americans. Well, he's right. They are racist too, but they are Americans. But you see, when you ask someone if they are a racist, you are complimenting them. Do not use the term race or racist. Bigot, bigotry, bias, those terms are more precise. And I guarantee you, a so-called racist does not want to be called a bigot. Because you place the responsibility on them individually, not on the group. See, when you call someone a racist, it's a group identity. But you call them a bigot, it's an individual. They don't want to hear that. Just no. Okay. Here's the thing. One of the things I wanted to show you, and now I'm going to close with this. The language of race is right in front of us all the time. But we have been so conditioned, we don't see it. It's in plain sight. Look at this. Black life spans almost 6 years less than white lives higher. Disease rates and greater life challenges, among other factors, mean African Americans have suffered a cumulative loss of 80 million years of life compared with white people in the first two decades of the century, according to a study of U.S. death certificate data. Okay. What's defined? Who are the white people? We just looked at the census form, didn't we? Who are the black people? We looked at the census form. Are they Haitians or Jamaican? Who are they? But it goes on to say not just black people, but hey, they say not black people, there's another group. African Americans. Who are the African Americans? This is the language of race, people. Let's continue and show you just how more confusing it becomes. Now, this was written with good intent. Don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing the information, but what information are they presenting? Can you identify yourself in here? No. There's no definitions in there. There's only labels. But anyhow, it says, well, anywhere, we can go anywhere. The last sentence. The study estimated the excess life lost among black people, whoever they are, of comparing the age of their death against typical life expectancies. In 2021, white Americans, who are they? You see, there's no criticism against using white, because white represents superiority. We've been conditioned to think of that. So we don't question that. And if you notice one thing, look at this. You see what the journalist has done? Look at black. It's capitalized, isn't it? Look at white. Think about that. You know what that means? You have been objectified as a group. You capitalize the B. You were all alike. There are no differences. You were all inferior. Okay, well, I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. I'm sure you're tired now, so. This is Stephen Ullman, and Stephen made the statement that, and that's important to us. As a matter of fact, there have been a number of statements, and probably we should have introduced some of them. But the one that I thought was important, he says, in a society such as ours, one may readily understand how the unreal may often become more real than the real. A case in point is race. In this connection, words certainly are the vehicle of our thoughts, but they may be far more than that. They may acquire an influence of their own, shaping and predetermining our processes of thinking and our whole outlook. Think about that. This is what we're talking about. He's also another scholar like Montague, who basically unravels the truth, but most people don't want to read it. Well, where's my other? Oh, I didn't do it. Okay. Well, here's a picture. Probably it is, but before I do that, I had a picture of Wile E. Coyote. Now, you're all familiar with Wile E. Coyote, right? I use Wile E. Coyote to help, I guess, explain the conundrum that we have in America. And it kind of sickens me to a degree when I hear people talking about they're fighting racism. They want you to contribute to their cause because they want to fight racism. You can't fight racism, people. You can't fight racism any more than Wile E. Coyote can catch the Roadrunner. Listen. Think of racism as the Roadrunner character. It was invented not to be caught. We as a society have been using racism as an escape from the truth of the myth of European supremacy. Common sense tells us that something must be wrong with us or our assumptions about race if we have been unable to eliminate it. The fact is that if we continue to use the language of race, we will never be able to have any effect on race. Any problem involving race can never be resolved using the language of race. That's not my words, that's Einstein's words. He didn't use race, he used science. So, like the Roadrunner, it will never be captured. The focus must be on the problem or belief in the concept of European supremacy. We need to be focusing on the language and focusing on the things that we can accomplish, although minuscule at the time, but they grow. But why waste time? Can anybody think of some great accomplishment that the ACLU or the Southern Poverty Center in the NAACP and all those others in fighting racism? Show me, what have they done? They're like the Roadrunner. I'm sorry. Now, what's happening in the fear in America today with respect to the bigots, the ones who want to keep us from experiencing our democracy the way we want our democracy to exist? They are the ones who are afraid of change. It's too late to prevent it, as I mentioned before, because it's already here. But they're going to do everything they can to slow it down. And that's where we come in. We have to expose them for the fools they are. All you have to do is ask them to be more explicit about what they need in their language. They can't tell you simply because there are no fixed definitions for what they are supporting. You guys have been great. I appreciate your time.
Oh, no.
Don't everybody speak at once.
You got some questions, right? Yeah, then the next speaker. Anybody got any questions? If you didn't write them down, that's all.
Yes, sir. Your name?
You
What's
new
your
book
name?
is out,
I'm sorry, your name?
Timothy Wimbley.
Yes, sir. What can I?
Your new book is out.
Here it is.
Yeah, there it is, right there.
Okay.
I've got a few here if you like. They're $15 a piece and I'll sign them for you. No charge.
Out.
Thank you.
You live on St.
I live in Edmond, which is,
Oh,
yeah, I worked in Edmond. That's why I lived there. I worked
Oh, okay.
there, almost 40 years, so, but they trying to commute back. and
So you
forth.
know Gerard
I didn't make that
Thompson?
much money.
So you know Gerard Thompson?
Oh, yeah.
It's your cousin.
Yeah.
Wow, he was the one who called me and told me you'd be here.
Yeah.
Well, good for him. He could have been here tonight. You can tell him what it is.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, my name is Cheryl. Can you explain to us where the term came from? Because I remember back in the day on an application, it just said black.
Okay.
That's right.
And then now it says black and African American.
Okay. We missed a golden opportunity back in the 60s. You see, what Maya Angelou says, or what she said was, when you know better, you do better. Okay? When the Africans were brought to America and enslaved, the first thing they took from the enslaved was their identity. And when you took, I don't know if any of you remember seeing Roots.
Yeah.
The movie Roots. One of the most telling scenes in Roots, and I talk about this in one of my books, was when Toby was strung up and the overseer was whipping the daylights out of him, saying, your name is not Kunta,
Right.
your name is Toby. He knew that once he gave up his name Kunta, his history was gone. There was absolutely
Wow.
nothing to tie him
Wow.
to his identity. Well, that's what happened, folks. The term black and Negro are the same. Those weren't terms we took for ourselves. Those were terms forced on us. And because we lived in communities that were not, excuse me, that were not, we'll say integrated, the African Americans or the enslaved Africans lived in their own little society and culture. So the language that existed was kept in that particular grouping. And when the master called you the N-word and referred to, you know, your fellow enslaved person, you did the same thing.
You're right.
You never gave it any concern. But today, what happened was back in 1960 when the Student Nonviolent Organization, or Students for, well, Stokely Carmichael's group, Stokely at a rally came out with the statement, Black Power.
Right, right.
And of course, that did it.
Man.
No, it did, because after that, people latched on to the black thing. But see, every time you say black, you are supporting and promoting white. Yeah, it's all race. That's what it is. I'm sorry. I just wanted to answer.
So you'll be available next 2 hours after this, right?
Yeah, so
We're gonna go in the corner and have a talk.
Okay, thanks for coming. Initially, I had copies, one of those little portable copies of the Constitution. I was going to share it, read directly from it. But if you already got a copy of it, go back and read through it. Go back and read the 13th and 14th Amendment. Look at the language, see what it says.
Dr. Lane, you want to sign this form? We're going to give you one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You want me to make
We all, well, everybody else, Dr. Kennedy, do what you're doing. We want to thank Dr. Paul Lehman. Let's give him a wonderful round of applause. This was a history lesson that's just the beginning. These are the things that we do on a daily basis. When y'all not around here, I told myself, you might be older than me, man, but you can't outrun me now. So I can say just about what I want until we get in the same room, then you are absolutely right. I'll put it in God. But again, y'all, this book, again, he's a well-renowned author. This story all over the world. I mean, not just speaking here. The first black African American. First Homo sapien to be on Channel 9 News as in color, people of color. So in this book, though, I mean, it just opens up doors to a number of questions you may have, or answers you may think about. And if anybody wants to know what it's over with, there's cards on the table. You may not want about it. That's on you. But the card, if you want to ask any questions about it, you go to his website. You can go to his email address, and boy, he'll and he's speaking just like he's saying on different topics. So they just he's well.
And it's just information. That's all I'm trying to do.
Again, I want everybody, for those of us who are recent members of the Coalition Against People Abuse, I'd like y'all to stand up so everybody can see who you are right quick.
She's on the flyer.
This is a recent group, our Oklahoma Coalition Against People Abuse, that's one of our Sister Martina stand over here. Let's give our So next we're gonna have Sister Cheryl Davis to come up. She's also a paralegal. We've been doing a lot of work together, and hopefully we're gonna do a lot of work in the future. She's also known and very instrumental in financial literacy, which she's gonna be talking in our community. So everybody knows, y'all, when you're talking about finances, when you're talking about older people, when you're talking about trying to get out of debt, you're gonna know how to do that. Myself, I don't know how to do it. Every time I turn around, I try to tell my counsel, look at me and let me borrow y'all's table.
I'll bring it back.
I'll bring it back later on. They say, Papa, we'll let you do that, but one thing about that though, it's gonna be a fee charge. But you wanna know why I teach them that? Because if you're not careful, people will take you faster than what you really are trying to go. Let's call up Cheryl Davis, well, let's give her a minute. Again, the topic of financial literacy in our community.
Hello, everyone. Let's give the good doctor another round of applause.
Oh,
I was in the chicken scratch over there trying to keep everything down. Everything's gonna say, I'm like, oh, man. I'm gonna need your notes though, Doc. I'll give you my email address.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you, yes, it was. You missed a lot. But I'm sure, are you videotaping this?
Yes.
You can- Okay, okay, yeah. You can do a
Yeah,
replay.
you get let us know. We can.
We're gonna do a replay, okay. I wanna thank you, first and foremost, Michael Washington, for inviting me.
Yeah.
The last time I spoke, in this, the domestic
Symposium.
symposium, yeah, that they did here, and I know Ms. Kimberly is doing one in October, correct?
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
So we got a lot of people in the community we're trying to bring together so that we can empower ourselves and, stay close to the things that are important. What he said to me today is to just change my mindset on even identifying, oh, where do I come from and who are my people?
Right.
Because we all are one, and that takes me back to Christ. You know, we are all created in his image. We are all the same.
Come on.
And to be able to be a person that says, okay, wait a minute, I am a child of Christ, and not just identify me by color or my hair or how I look. That is very important to me. So I want to thank you, Doctor. Like, you got me fired up over here. I'm so excited. And to me, at the end of the day, it's not about white, black. It's like, how are we treating each other?
That's it.
The Lord created us equal, and he said what? Number one, to love one another. And we're not loving each other if we are making a difference in our colors and slavery and all those things. And, you know, it's just, man, listen, let me get off my soapbox and get started on this.
Hey, come on,
I'm really excited, but let me start off by saying, when I grew up, and even some of us here, we were never taught how to budget, save, or invest. It was like we went to school and there was a class, I remember taking a class, and the class was, and within that class, it taught us how to budget a checkbook, you know, take care of our checkbook, balance the checkbook. And that was it. After that, beyond that, it was nothing else. But so I'm hoping that having little things like this will help us make a change, not just in our communities, but sharing with others. Doesn't matter what color we are, we all need to learn. Because the credit system is like, to me, the stock market. It's like volatile, it's like we don't understand it, it's like we run from it, and so we don't make change because it's just something we're afraid of. And so we need to not be fearful of those things. Have this conversation and sit and talk with, like I said, no matter what color, to share, what do you know? Okay, well, let me tell you what I know, let me tell you what I'm learning. And to this day, I started my credit journey, I want to say 2 years ago, but within that time, within a specific period of time, my credit score went up 202 points.
Oh, wow.
Not just with the platform, I'm partnering with the company, not just with that platform, but me actually venturing out to understand, hey, I can learn something on my own.
All right.
You know, because it wasn't ingrained in us growing up. Doesn't matter what color, not everybody has it. Some parents say, okay, here's what you need to do. We're gonna add you on our credit cards. That's another thing a lot of people don't know what to do. Add somebody on your credit card as an authorized user. It will increase your credit score. People are doing that now. And here's another note. Because they know people are doing that, they have changed it to where it's called, I don't know the term, so don't quote me, you can look it up. It's called the true credit score. So what they're doing is they're going back, if you're an authorized user, they're gonna go back 2 years to see, is this really your credit score? So it seems like, yeah, and it seems like
Wow.
the more we all get up to this level, because you know, there's the one percenters, and don't get me started on that. But there's the 1%ers, and we just did not have access to certain things. And you know, we still, but it doesn't matter, again, I'm gonna keep saying, it doesn't matter color. Not everyone has access to things. It could be your social economic status. You know, you just don't have it. So anyway, let me start with some statistics, okay? 1.4 million identity theft claims happened in 2020. We know with COVID, a lot of stuff happened in 2020, but that's just one of the many things. 14.6 trillion American households had debt reported in 2021. And that's on debt.org, you can look that up, okay? 64% of Americans are expected to retire with less than $10,000 in a savings account. That was alarming to me. And then 6% of us lack wills and estate planning tools. How many of you, and let's be honest, and I'm gonna raise my hand because I focused on that this last couple of months, or I say last year, and I got my will done. How many of you have your will in here? Okay, and you guys can go and Google all these celebrities. Was it Michael Jackson too? Was it Prince and all these other people that did not have a will? And guess what? On the paralegal side, by the time they are done appointing someone to the state to take care of your estate, the money's basically gone. Period. And then they do what they want to do. Don't get me started on our judicial system. That's another story. Okay, so let me keep going. Okay, 1 in 4 Americans have less than a 650 credit score. 1 in 4. That's startling. And let's talk about the credit ranges, because there's a thing called, how many of you know that there's two different platforms that they use, a Vantage score and a FICO score. Do you guys know the difference between the two? Okay, I didn't know from the beginning. All I know is this, and here's what I tell my customers, my clients. Pull up Credit Karma. How many of you have Credit Karma in here? Okay. Get the app, pull up Credit Karma, and see what's on your credit score. For me, I use that to just show them, okay, here's what's on your credit score, here's how we're gonna start. We're gonna start sending a letter out, and I have a company that does all this for me. I send out no letters, and so we dispute those things because TransUnion, Equifax, and what's the other one? Experian. There's 3, right? How many of you know that these are not governmental entities? They're privately owned. Privately owned. So they don't care. They will put anything on your credit score, and then it's up to you to dispute it. But there's a law, the Fair Debt Collections Act, says that you have the right to dispute these things. Okay? And so in turn, I'll just give you an example. So I had a collection on my credit score, okay, on all 3 credit bureaus. And I realized after sending out my first round of letters that they had it on there twice. It was on there twice. And then if there's a different amount in there, it's got to come off. So you can dispute anything that's negative on your credit report. You can dispute anything. It's not to say you don't own the debt, but if it's wrong, they have to take it off. Okay? And then there's other ways after, you know, you can talk to them. There's some letters. I have some letters. Email me, you guys. I'll give you these letters, these simple letters. And there's a thing you can freeze your credit score and various other things, but that's a long time. Okay. So anyway, let's go back to your credit score. Okay. Anywhere from a 300 to 490 is considered poor. Okay. So what we said, the Vantage score and then the FICO score. You want to go by the FICO score because most of the companies and loans that you get, homes and things of that, they'll go by FICO. Okay. The Vantage score, like I said, I tell my clients to use that as a marker to see where you are, but it's different than your FICO score. Okay. So you want to go with your FICO. But on your Credit Karma, you're going to see that's the Vantage score. And then just Google the differences between the two. It's just a model made up by different people. Okay. In the United States, most credit scores are used by either Vantage or FICO. Okay. So in order to get a house, to increase your odds of approval and get a lower rate for your mortgage, you want to have a good credit score and a good range. Okay. A minimum credit score of 500 to 700, it ultimately depends on the type of mortgage and the loan that you're applying for the lender. Most lenders require 620 to buy a house with a conventional mortgage. Other types of mortgages have a different credit score requirement. Okay, so if you get an FHA home loan and you have a credit score of 500, you'll have to put 10% down, okay? If you have a credit score of 580, you'll have to put 3.5%. So there's a difference there. That's just like, getting a home versus getting a car. And I will tell you guys my own personal experience some years ago. My credit score was so bad that I had an APR of like 21, 22%. And by that time, you don't even care. 21, 22, you need to know though. So at that point, it was like, I didn't care. I just got a car. I wanted a car. But we're talking about a $509, I say 10 because I rounded it. $510 a month for a Chrysler 200, 2013. Okay, that's astounding. And I'm still dealing with these people now. Listen, because I'm standing before you guys today doesn't mean I have a perfect credit score. I said my credit score went up 202 points. Okay, I didn't say it was perfect, but I'll tell you, when I get to an 800, everybody's gonna know about it.
Oh my God,
Come over here, let me show you. So I'm gonna get really excited about that. Okay, so USDA loans have a different credit score range. Typically, at least they want you to have a 580. Okay, and VA loans are usually like a 620 or higher. Okay, remember that your credit score plays a role in determining the interest rate and payment terms on a mortgage loan. Lenders base the interest they charge on how risky they view you as a borrower. Now keep in mind also, they consider something risky like this, because your credit score is just, I keep telling people it's beyond me, I can't fathom it sometimes. I just try to take it and break it down and okay, I know not to do this, I know not to do that. Don't go and apply for a whole bunch of stuff because they look at that as well. And those inquiries play a role in your credit report as well. So they want to see how risky you are. So while you may get a mortgage with a bad credit, you might be able to get one with a bad credit. It's typically better if you improve your credit score, number one. I know we all want to say, okay, well, I want to go out and do this. I want to get a home or I can get a car. And if we get it, we're just excited. You know, at the car lot, if you guys ever been and they wear you down, and by the time you're done, you think you got a deal, but you're walking out, that was me with a 21%. I'm like, well, yeah, and how to pay that $500 and some car payment?
Yeah, that's right.
Jeez. Okay, so let's look at bad versus good and buying a home. Let's say someone has a 560 credit score. Not to say you can't get a home, you can still get it. And then someone who has a 740. Okay, the 560 credit score is going to get you a 12.99%. And the 740 will get you a 4.025. I see your mouth wide open. Yes, exactly. And so at the end of the day, you're looking at $955,000 versus $413,733. Crazy. Let's look at a car. Okay, someone who has a 560. Back in the day, I was like, 560, that's a good credit score. Not. Yes, my ignorance. I'm okay though, because I can smile. The only thing to be embarrassed about, you guys, is if you don't do anything about it. So I can stand here and I can tell you guys, I'm doing something about it, so I'm excited. And I want to share my information, what I'm learning, with other people as well. So, okay, so let's look at a car. A 560 versus a 740. We're getting a 26% on a vehicle for the 560 and a 6% for the 740, okay? And we're looking at a $599 car payment versus a $387 car payment, okay? That's a $212 difference, okay? And then we're looking at a difference between $12,730. Jeez. Okay, let's look at how your credit score is calculated, okay? Your credit score is calculated by your payment history, that's 35%. Your credit utilization, that's how much you use on your credit cards, okay? How much, if you max them out or don't. And then 15% is your length of credit. 10% is new credit inquiries. Like I said, if you go and, oh, I want to get a car, or, you know, can I get a credit card? So those matter as well. I think those are like, they affect you. They affect you maybe 20 points or something like that. It just depends on your credit score. Okay, and then the other 10% is your those are installment and your revolving, which is like your mortgage and your credit card. Okay, try not to get distracted. Okay, so, my main goal here on today is just to make you guys aware that credit is important, and we need to take that first step, whatever that looks like, whether you buy a plan or you get a plan or whatever. And in addition to that, we need to learn how to budget and save. We need to teach our kids this in the communities. One of the things that I'm passionate about in the community, in all communities, is single parents. How many of you have ever been a single parent? Okay, that's really major, okay? I know some single parents in the area who are on welfare and working a job and trying to make their ends meet, okay? My thing is, how about if I can teach you, show you, help you, build up your credit to where you can either change your zip code or stay right to where they're doing gentrification. Because you don't qualify right now, but you know that house down the street that you see that's really, really nice? How about we get you qualified for that? It changes, it's life changing. It definitely changes everything.
Sure, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get to come, they said the air conditioning something, get ready to close in about 10 minutes.
Okay, well, that's good, because I'm pretty much done. I'm pretty much done.
No, but I love to hear you talk,
Okay,
you know that.
no, I'm done, and I'm gonna tell you guys, these little notes that I have, I usually try to prepare, but I thought today, you know what, Lord, let me go out and just tell them my story. Let me tell them how I feel, throw little statistics out there, but let them know right now, there's an urgency, okay? And if I can't help you, let's point you in a direction where somebody else can, but let's get it going, because definitely it changed my life. Definitely changed my life. And you hear people all the time, what's the first thing they say? Oh, my credit's bad, or you go to get a home, oh, get a secure credit card. How many have heard that? Okay, if you get a secure credit card, how are you gonna use that? If nobody taught you how to use it? If you get a secured, okay, and then how many of us have $500 to $600 to put down a secure credit card? And we know that we need that for the month, right? So what I'm telling my friends, my family, my customers, my clients, whatever, go and get a secure credit card. If they say put $100 down, you could probably manage that or save to get that. Put it down, put the $100 down and use it for your Netflix account. Use it for your Hulu account and pay it off. And then I'm gonna give you guys another tip before I stop. There is a credit tip, it's a credit tip, a real good one. So if you pay your credit cards 15 days, well 13, I think it's 13 days before it's due, pay half of it, don't take any other amount, don't pay extra. And then the other half 3 days before, it tricks, and trick has such a negative connotation, but there's a difference between when it's billed out to you, when they report it to the credit agencies, and when you pay for it, and when they actually get it, right? So your credit score will think that you made 2 payments in 1 month, and your credit score goes up. If you think I'm playing, look at it. And there's some other tips and tricks that I'm learning and that I've learned, and I don't mind sharing with you guys. I'm gonna put some more business cards over there. You guys give me a call. I'll be able to help you as best I can. Well, thank you for letting me talk to you guys.
Hey, wow. Thank you, girl. Y'all, there's usually, you know, the devil's been trying to stop us all day long. We gonna make it. Brother Berger, come on up at least. I'm sorry, brother. I'm short, but yeah, because you ain't a great man. But let him speak and then we'll hold out.
So what's cool, y'all? No matter where I go, no matter what I do, I'm always limited. So when I go places with people, I'm always like, don't worry. Like, I don't even write nothing down because all I do is sit at home and study for these moments, right? So pretty much, not even pretty much, I'm running for Ward 7 in Lawton, Oklahoma. And they're like, man, well, why are you gonna do that? What makes you go to Oklahoma City and talk? They ain't got nothing to do with Ward 7. It's to get people to start understanding that we're the issue, our generation. My generation isn't stepping up, right? We have to get out, and it's about passing on the information. It's about being able to go out and simply just honestly listening to you. I didn't mean to say thank you, but I mean, she's awesome, right? Listening to this gentleman here, I learned so much. I mean, both of y'all, like I'm getting y'all cards and I'll be getting on y'all nerves, right?
Do that.
I'm a super duper. I always tell people I'm really a nerd at heart. So people see me, right? They see me dress, clothes, all that stuff, and they're like, oh man, it must be a way. But they don't realize, like, I'm really an information nerd. So with both things that y'all were talking about, previously with her, my background is I sold cars. Well, people are like, you know, what do you know about this or that? Well, I didn't just sell them. I ran the dealership since I was 21 years old.
All right.
Salesman of the year from 19 to 20. So they're like, well, what do you know? I work great with people. I can work with anybody. Well, the key is, it's not about honestly what you can come in and tell people, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. No. I can get everybody in here to get an award, and we can all get in a vote, and I guarantee you we can get where we're going. So that's what the goal is. We're running for awards, but stepping into that, I believe that the number one thing is the leadership. It's the people before us. Now, the problem we've been having is, I don't typically meet, honestly, and I'm gonna pick on nationality a little bit today. But when I see people that look like me, you know, those have been my biggest issue. So when he gets up here and he tells the speech, it's so beautiful because on this journey, I've gotten more help from the people that they say don't look like me, right? And you see, so in the end, my point with that is, no matter where you go, you gotta find a sense of understanding and familiarity. So I wanted to come here because I literally just wanted to see people. I like going places because I just want to shake your hand. I want to introduce myself, and I don't have to tell you. All I really need to do is tell you about me. So I'm gonna kind of land this plan. I'm gonna give you 5 minutes about myself. Getting good, perfect. I can go up this time right here. So, people say, where you from? I'm from, born in Benton Harbor, Michigan. Well, born in St. Joseph, but born in Benton Harbor, Michigan. Lived there for 7 years. My mom was a single mom. My father went to prison when I was 4 days old, 2 days old, whatever the story would tell, right? My dad went to prison, but my mom also was a teenage mom, right? So most people look at me and they like, man, you know, I'm a hell of a statistic. I say that, right? Because before I graduated high school, when I was 16, so I was 16 and I was the man, right? That's what we call ourselves in that age. So I was smart enough, and I say smart enough because I have beautiful children, but I was smart enough to not only get my high school girlfriend pregnant, right? But I was talking to these 2 girls, right? And I couldn't figure out which one I liked the most. I can talk about it like this now because I'm 30. My sons will be 14 next month. My daughter turned 14 in June. But I have twin boys and a daughter that are 2 months apart, right? Absolutely. Now that happened when I was 15 years old. So when that happened when I was 15, you say, well, Quarion, you don't know what you was doing. Where were the parents? My mother was in Iraq, left me at home alone by myself. Not her fault. She left me with my grandma. But I say that to say my grandma can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to do. I'm a 15-year-old little boy. My grandma was a recovering addict. Point blank period. Right? But then those 2 girls' moms, y'all letting me stay the night. Why is that? You gonna let a young man stay the night and sleep in the room with your daughter? I know I wouldn't. I got a 12-year-old daughter. I take her everywhere with me. Y'all probably would have met her today, but I just didn't bring her today. But she's always with me. She's those twin boys' biological sister, right? Because they all come from the same mom.
Amen.
I say that I raised those kids since they were babies. Went to high school. I didn't drop out. I graduated early, not even on time. I graduated early. I worked 2 jobs my senior year. After I worked those 2 jobs my senior year, once I graduated high school, I was gonna work for Goodyear, and I remember getting a job at Goodyear. I was working at a factory, right? And I remember calling my mom, and I'm like, Mama, this ain't for me. And it was easy. There wasn't enough money. I've been getting a lot of money since I was a little kid, right? When I was 12 years old, I used to go around and sell $5 candy bars. And we got to keep $1.75 of each with the company we were with. Then when I moved to Lawton, I was 14, I started working for the Lawton Constitution. I was selling the paper, right? But man, let me tell y'all, you get $8 per sign up and you get $20 if they use their credit card. Y'all know if I knocked on your door, you wouldn't sign up without that debit card. Oh my God, because I'm gonna look at you and I'm gonna say, man, come on, you know I can't steal your information, right? I ain't asking you for the 3 numbers on the back. I just need what I need, and they'll call you to verify the rest. You know, so I was able to take all of my group of friends as a kid, right? And bring them all. My girlfriend, everybody. We all worked on this one bus at the Constitution. I made more money. I made so much money that year as a 14, 15-year-old that my mom had to file taxes on.
Shut the front door. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So I fast forward to making it to 16 years old. I wanted to be a CNA. My mom always worked in the nursing field. She worked for a doctor's office called Cascade Pediatrics. And at Cascade, there was this doctor named Dr. Siegel. Dr. Siegel had my 13th birthday. My birthday is August the 13th. He had my 13th birthday in Lake Michigan. He owned this big old house, glass, everything, right? And once again, I keep telling y'all, I'm a statistic. I'm not supposed to be, right? Successful, as they say. So when I see this as a kid, I'm like, man, I'm getting that. I told her, son, I'm gonna come back and buy this house. So I ain't bought it yet, y'all, but we But so I'm looking at this time, and I keep looking back. I want to make sure we're on point so we can get out of here. We won't be on their point. So when I see that, of course, at 14, I start working my butt off. We moved to Oklahoma. When my mom deployed, I became that CNA at 16, and I worked at the rehab unit. I worked in the rehab unit for a year. After I worked there for a year, then I fast forward from there. I ended up going to work for the VA Center. I worked there for a year. You say, what was the second job? I would deliver pizzas in the afternoon, right? Because Mr. Lewis was cool. He let me and my best friend, we both drove, but I could take my kids to work. So my kids is in the back seat, I'm driving, delivering pizzas in the afternoon. In the morning, I'm a CNA. Now, everybody really didn't think I graduated high school, y'all, right? They didn't think that. So when I walked across that stage, it amazed everybody because they didn't understand how I walked, but they didn't realize I had all my credits from Michigan because I went to very special schools, which gave me extra credits. So I'm trying to land this at, now I'm getting to the car business. How did I get in the car business? So I'm telling my mama, man, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it. I ended up getting a different job. I still didn't like it. I go up to every dealership. I only owned one tie, maybe shirt, whatever, but I didn't look that well, right? Interview, go to all these places, they wouldn't hire me. I get to Jim Glover Chevrolet. I never forget, they had just moved to Lawton. They had been there about 6 months, about 6 months, and they only liked young black people, believe it or not. Young black guys. Why? Because they know you're hungry. They knew it from Tulsa. That's where they come from. They're the #1 Chevy dealer in Oklahoma. So I go to Jim Glover. We had 1 minute. So I go to Jim Glover. When I get to Jim Glover, I end up becoming salesman of the year the first year. I ended up becoming salesman of the year the second year, but I only did it for 9 months. My older brother was actually killed the first year in 2012. So that's what put me on this journey. Because even though I was making all of the money in the world, after 10 years of doing that, I'll be honest with y'all, I'm broken $1 million for sure. What messed me up the most is nobody cared enough in the community to say a damn thing about what happened to my brother. And all the love I show y'all, I buy toys. I got all these kids, right? I go to everywhere and purchase toys out of my pocket. When Christmas is done, we do ours at midnight. I drop the babies off, and when I drop the babies off at their moms in the morning, I get up, go buy toys myself, and go deliver around the city to whoever needs them. So I'm saying that to say, but it's not the people that's the problem. It's the people at the top, because we got the no snitching rule. No, we got that in the politics. Y'all stay over there.
Hey, all right. Look here, I'm trying to tell y'all, that lady just come in, we got about 1 or 2 minutes, but let me say, y'all get away without me telling my story. Come on. You better go, we ain't got time. So thank y'all very much. The next one, let's give all of us. Definitely going to do our current local event next month.
Are they gonna have Fox televised it again?
Oh, yeah, we're going to have
Fox.
3 more.
Yes. So this is.
Oh, that's all right. Hey, get on.